Hello, everyone. Welcome. It's Alicia Brashay here at Cosmic Gateway in conjunction with World Unity Week, and I'm super excited to present my next guest. I have here with me Mary Rodwell. She is the founder and principal of Australian Close Encounters Research Network, ACERN, and since 1994, Mary has worked in a private practice as a professional counsellor, hypnotherapist, metaphysical teacher, researcher, author, Reiki Master, and international speaker. ACERN's primary role is to offer professional counselling and support, hypnotherapy, and information to individuals and their families who experience paranormal experiences, particularly specialising in abduction and contact experiences. Mary's also the author of 2 books, Awakening, How Extraterrestrial Contact Can Transform Your Life, and The New Human, Awakening to Our Cosmic Heritage. So welcome, Mary. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to be able to sit down with you again and have this conversation and bring some amazing information through.
Alicia, it's a pleasure. And what I hope with the presentation, for those that are new to it, I'm going to give them a bit of background, but also for those that are already having experiences, I hope that some of this will help them connect some of the dots into what's really an extraordinarily important time in our evolution as a species, I believe. So I'm going to get straight into it and do the screen.
Thank you.
Here we go. And let's start this off. There we are. So, the new human, awakening to our cosmic heritage. And why I've called it the new human is that I believe that we have been actively upgraded over the centuries to the point now where we are in a new phase of what I call activated humanity. And I'd like to explain what I mean by that as we go along. UFOs, or UAPs as they're called now, unidentified aerial phenomena. They have been all through history. We have seen these craft and they've been drawn in many different forms on cave drawings, etc. But this is one gentleman and the craft that he's seen. We're literally seeing them everywhere now. Anyone who's got an iPhone is being able to see the particular craft. But let's look at the science to begin with. And I start with the science because I think that grounds a lot of this. And it's really important that we ground it in our tangible 3D reality. Dr. Rudy Shield is one of the co-founders, along with myself, of the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Free Foundation. And that was created to put information out there from as many of those that have experiences about the kinds of experiences they have. And it's been extraordinary that we have the information that we've discovered, because it's actually the first time 4,200 people have given information about their conscious experiences. But this is what Dr. Shield said about all of this. UFOs get here at much faster than the speed of light and allow their alien visitors to interact with us in a variety of ways. It's been confusing because the craft can be so different and the beings reported can be so different. It simply suggests there are a great many civilizations out there interacting with us. Basically, all stars in our galaxy host a family of planets, much like our own solar system. And what article of religious faith would it take to say life emerged on only our planet when there are billions available? And of course, now we're finally getting some acknowledgement from the US government about disclosure of what they know about these unidentified, and I would say actually identified flying craft. Because they are identified and they know about them and they've known about them for a long time. But anyway, let's go from here. A modern perspective on the gods. And I think this is really very important to understand that in the past, these visitors from various civilizations off planet were visiting our planet with technology that was no question, it was seen as godlike to the more primitive humans at the time. So of course, what did we do? We made them gods. But it's time we grew up and realized that what we're looking at now in a modern vernacular is actually just, greater technology than we have. Here we have images throughout history of these craft, the beings that have visited the planet, the Vimanas in India, where you've got the craft being shown here, images of beings. These are the Wandjina, the indigenous Australian beings that visited Australia. There we have a cave drawing of a craft. And, when people say to me, oh, well, this is all symbolic, I'm saying, we didn't have, the primitive humans. They weren't thinking in symbology. They were thinking in, I see this and I don't understand it. So let's anyway, let's take it into even the religious text. And I'm doing this not to rattle people's cages, particularly who are coming from a religious mindset, other than to say, here's the crucifixion. What are these in this image here? What is this in what was the baptism of Christ, painted by Art de Gelder? And I think it was the 1400s or 1500s. We've got something that looks suspiciously like an oval spacecraft to me. I don't know about you. And also other images of technology. And the Bible alone in Genesis says, and then God said, and now we will make human beings. They will be like us and resemble us. But who is us? And this is where I think we really have to start to grow up and start looking at what we understand now from our own present awareness. And I've put this in because I've got a good sense of humor. The 21st century, a modern perspective. I'm sorry about this. It's not meant to offend anyone. Here we have a little Zeta saying to these two individuals at the pearly gates, look, I'd like to let you in, but you were very adamant about not believing in aliens. So I don't know. That just appealed to me. So some of you might get it. I don't know.
I love
that. Gods of mythology and religion, are they extraterrestrials? Archaeological, anthropological evidence of visits by many non-human intelligences throughout millennia. Non-human intelligences interpreted as gods. Top image is the god Ganesha. And this is an interesting one, drawn by an experiencer called Jane, of one of the beings that visits her. It looks very similar, doesn't it, to me at least, of Ganesha, the Indian god. This is another one, a drawing of from a 9-year-old of her special friend who visits her, who's blue, called Emenoko. And you can see she's blue. Here we have the Indian god Krishna. Notice the blue skin and something that looks suspiciously like a spacecraft just above Krishna's head. Again, I think it's there if you want to see it. So star beings, there are many, many different types of beings people see. And it's not just the little grey zetas that most people talk about. Humanoids, reptilians are another one, mantis beings, ant-like beings, crystalline beings, lion beings, feline beings, and I'll show you just a few. These were drawn by a lovely gentleman, Martin Law, musician in Ireland, and he's also put in the picture what we call some of this strange script, which I'm going to talk about throughout the presentation, and why those that have encounters sometimes come out with these unusual expressions of script and symbols and artwork. But this is, he said he did the colors with this because of their energy field. Here's more of the classic ones that have been seen, lions and feline beings. When we look at the greys and the zetas, there are small ones, there are tall ones. As one lady said, she knew of 165 types of grey. So you can't just say, well, they're all like this, because it'd be like taking one human being and saying all humans are like this. So this is just to open up to the fact that we are being visited by many, many different intelligences. Some are physical, some are non-physical, and they're interdimensional, extra-dimensional, trans-dimensional, and what we're hearing is visitors from our future also. Here's some more of these. The Nordics, very humanoid, blue beings, zetas. This one is from Sirius. Again, many different forms of beings that people are often afraid to talk about because they don't want to be seen as crazy. It's time we stop that. In my book, The New Human, Lee Capitelli has drawn some of the beings that she interacts with, energy beings, and she talks about her role on this planet. And part of it, as she says, is that as we evolve, we're being exposed to more and more of these different intelligences to wake us up and help us to realize that we're really not the top of the intelligence pyramid at all, that there's many others that are way in advance of us, but they are here to help us. Because I live in Australia, it's been really interesting to talk to the indigenous peoples of this continent, and I love this particular picture. It was painted by an Aboriginal lady in central Northern Territories, and she gave it to a friend of mine, and this is a print of it. And she said, "Life on the stars beyond the Milky Way, the connection to the Seven Sisters constellation." The Aboriginal artist, the planets are half a day's journey. The beings are very friendly, and just watch the Aboriginal way of life. They have no guns, spears, or weapons. The air on their planet is food. Their green uniforms protect from Earth's diseases. These space people speak all languages. The elders say the space people showed them how to grow food, find water, and showed them how to use amethyst stones for healing. So for them, extremely positive. And I want to talk about the surveys that have indicated that out of all of that 4,200 people that were surveyed on their conscious recall, 85% of them noticed that after contact, they had a psycho-spiritual transformation. And I'm going to talk more about that in a minute. Gods or hybrid humans. Part of this presentation is to recognize that more people are becoming aware that maybe they may be what we call an upgrade or a hybrid human. Certainly here, I believe some of the pharaohs with these strange shaped skulls, and they're seen all over the world, by the way, not just in places like Peru, but in Egypt, etc., and in Australia. Some of these skulls have been found. Initially, it was believed that they were like that through binding. But what they discovered was that with some of those with these skulls, that the child that was pregnant in one of these beings, these humans, was actually had, as they were pregnant, actually had the same shaped skull. So although I do think binding was a copy of the gods or the hybrids, rather than the fact that everyone was in fact from binding. And that's really very important. We were created by extraterrestrials. Tracy Taylor had this download. One night, I had this intense feeling before sleep. I wrote in a process where I had little control, something beyond my present understanding. It was contrary to everything I had been taught. It said the human race had been created by extraterrestrials. It contained information about genetic manipulation of human extraterrestrial DNA to create another species. And I found this really very significant. And I needed, as my background is one in, if you like, medical science as a nurse and a midwife, I needed to look at that because to me, that is real tangibility to all of this. Dr. William Brown, a molecular biologist, and I'm going to quote another molecular biologist in a minute, as well as Dr. Francis Crick. He says this: historical evidence of genetic manipulation which points to extraterrestrial intervention, the missing link. Human DNA molecules fused together. This does not happen naturally. Many indicators of genetic manipulation showing advanced technology will have been used to remodel the genomes in humans. We also have a mystery, a biological mystery, which I believe, doesn't take a genius to work out. We have 223 genes, which are a sideways insertion of genetic material, all related to higher psychological functioning. Where did this originate? No other species on the planet has these particular genes, only Homo sapiens sapiens. And we had this missing link from Neanderthal and Cro-Magnon, and then we had this missing link, and all of a sudden we have Homo sapiens sapiens with twice the brain size. Dr. Francis Crick, well known as co-founder of the DNA molecule, author of Life Itself, said this about intelligent design of our species. The immensity of complex coded and precisely sequenced information is absolutely staggering. The DNA evidence speaks of intelligent information-bearing design. And he says something particularly interesting to me. They program the molecules so that when we reached a certain level of intelligence, we would be able to access their information, and they could therefore teach us about ourselves. So what was that actually saying? Does it mean that when we reached a certain level of technology, we would actually then realize that we were intelligently designed? Or is there more to that? And I believe there's more to that as well. So why is DNA so important in the experiences of so many that have encounters? This is from a drawing of from a 13-year-old young boy in Canada. This is the being that he saw. And he said this: I felt these beings were like scientists and were curious about us. I was told that it was something to do with genetics. And in the free survey, 25.80% were given information about upgrading of human DNA. Also, scientific research suggests human DNA has both physical and multidimensional properties, and altered can be activated by frequency. What is the evidence Homo sapiens, our ancestors, were intelligently designed with added extraterrestrial genes to the human genome? Junk DNA activated with certain frequencies to trigger how the DNA will express itself. DNA operates multidimensionally through a miniature wormhole to access quantum information, explaining how we get intuitive knowledge such as telepathy and clairvoyance, and is programmable and can be changed through human language. Epigenetics demonstrates DNA is conditioned and affected by human experiences, reality constructs, belief, and attitudes to the experience. Applicable to DNA of other species, not only to humans, but animals and plants. DNA has the ability to transform itself and affect others via frequency. And that is now very key to how this upgrade of humanity is actually occurring. Much of this information came from scientific research in Russia, and they understood, and they called it holographic DNA, creates wormholes, information that can be transmitted to humans, to human consciousness. So magnetized wormholes. This is how DNA accesses new information, tunnel connections between entirely different areas in the universe. DNA attracts the information and passes it on to our consciousness and explains phenomena such as precognitive insights, clairvoyance, intuition, telepathy, past lives, spontaneous and remote acts of healing, self-healing, remote influencing with weather patterns, crop circles, and much more. We now have the science to show how we live in a quantum universe. The surveys that were done is now in this book, Beyond UFOs, The Science of Consciousness and Contact with Non-Human Intelligence. 4,200 people globally, 600 questions. And this is the first time we've had this information. The evidence for the reality of extraterrestrial encounters is supported scientifically through the quantum hologram theory of physics and linked to non-ordinary states of consciousness. We have not only the photographs of spacecraft, sightings that are viewed as credible, implanted objects that were removed by Dr. Roger Lear and others, marks and scars which fluoresce under black ultraviolet light, whistleblower testimony, as well as missing time episodes, EMF magnetic changes in soil after a spacecraft has landed, multiple witness testimony, conscious recall of encounters, and human DNA evidence of intelligent design. There's your nuts and bolts for me to give people enough information to help them understand that this is a reality. But we have a great deal more than that now as we explore this. So what happens after contact? The transformative changes alone give us evidence this is real. When people say to me, well, they haven't got a piece of the craft, or, you know, let me see some, you know, real pictures where they're standing, holding, or connecting with one of these beings and all the rest of it. One of the interesting things with this experience and what makes it so difficult to give it the tangibility that people hoped or want to see is because we've discovered that out of all the encounters and contact, 75% are actually in an out-of-body state. So in sense, they have these dreams that they've never forgotten of being on a spacecraft, which I'm saying are not dreams. In most cases, they're a recall, but because they're in a trance state, they believe that they're not real. But it's because they've been out of body in their experience. Only 25% seem to be in a physical body when they're taken on the craft. But what is the evidence of the experience? People change and transform after these encounters. They can have these encounters after a near-death experience, which changes their frequency, and they start to see more of the multidimensional reality. They start to perceive spirits, non-human entities, orbs of light and intelligence. We call those light beings, energy fields, out-of-body experiences and astral traveling, they'll see them. Shamanic experiences can activate that awareness, Kundalini awakening, healing experiences and healing abilities. Heightened intelligence happens, information, knowledge downloads, heightened multidimensional senses such as telepathy and clairvoyance, past life recall can start to occur, not just on Earth, but other planetary systems and dimensions. Telekinesis, managing to use their abilities, their thoughts to move objects, telepathic abilities, and also producing, and I'm going to give you some examples of that, of strange symbols, scripts, artwork, and articulating these light or universal languages and downloading frequencies, music frequencies. So I call that awakening and activation. And this is what happens after maybe UFO sightings, seeing spirits. They'll have shamanic practices can often instigate this. Meditation can instigate this. Out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences, healing and healing arts, energy work can often activate someone into more of their activated DNA. Hallucinogens, Kundalini activation, crop circles can be an activator, one or more of all of these, and hearing even the light language and downloads from non-human intelligences. Usually a profound life experience activates that dormant DNA that we have that is supposedly junk DNA, according to the scientists, because they don't actually understand what it is. And yet 95% of the DNA is apparently junk DNA. So multidimensional encounters. I'm now going to tell you, share with you an experience of Dr. Olson, who's a molecular biologist. She's also an experiencer. She's had both physical and multidimensional experiences, encountered many species of extraterrestrial beings. She's had near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, past life recall, shamanic experiences, healing, experienced as a healer and healed by non-human intelligences, scientific and intuitive understanding of loading and energizing water as part of one of her, if you like, multidimensional skills, understanding of the new human upgrade she calls letter people. And by that, we're talking about those that may be Asperger's, ADHD, dyslexic, and forms of autism. These are some of the beings that she sees. And I'm going to show you a little clip of these cone-headed beings that she's seen many times that did healing on her. This is the mantis being that she's seen, lion beings. This is one of the craft in an orb. And this is another one of her, one of the beings she calls Ram-Tar, who protected her when she came out with her story. She's interacted with intelligences from the Andromeda galaxy, gold monk Buddha, fairy pixie beings, water spirits, Native American guardian, shadow people, blue orb, water spirits, small brown flat skull beings during healing, eagle man, avatar, human and solid, fully conscious, interaction on a train. So she was actually fully aware of this contact, cat being, leopard being, and various other beings. So this is one person that's had a whole array of different intelligences that she's interacted with. And this is, again, something that many people don't realize. It's not just one type of being or another. It may be multiple different intelligences they're interacting with. She also wanted to know whether she should come out, the space closet, as I call it. And she was prompted by a mantid being to come out after a significant healing experience. She asked for guidance to know if she was on track and if she should come out, to give her a sign. She had severe dislocation of her atlas vertebra, causing extreme discomfort, and spontaneously the vertebra rotated by itself into the correct position. She says she can now swallow without pain. I called this my sign, she said, and I'm coming out as promised. And I know it's important for me to be evolving, developing my abilities, because I feel great changes are coming in my lifetime. Now I'm going to show you a little video of the experience she had with what she calls the cone-headed beings that came in her room and did a healing on her.
I woke up staring right into the lower body of a small being. I raised my head and upper body from the bed and leaned my head into my right hand. Immediately I focused my eyes on places in the room and wondered what this being looked like. I left my body and went to those places in above and behind the being. I could see my body from above, felt so happy, and then I slowly lowered myself down into my body. When I was back and in control of my body, I leaned forward towards the being. He was still standing, healing me with his eyes shut, and I could see the soft glow from the fabric in his suit and every fiber in it.
What is not known by much of the public is from the surveys we discovered that out of the 4,200 people, 50% of them had had healing on board craft. And it's really important for us to really start to understand more of our connection to them. Here we have another lady that has seen these cone-headed beings in Australia. This is Dr. Olsen's drawing of the cone-headed being. This is the lady from Australia, who Heather Patterson, who also sent me one of the beings that she's seen, which is identical to Dr. Olsen, with including a strange script. What I'm always looking for is the patterns and similarity between encounters. And we've got someone from Sweden and someone from Australia, both seeing similar beings. Now let's look at what Nikola Tesla really says about reality. If you wish to understand the universe, think of energy, frequency, and vibration. Our entire biological system, the brain and the earth itself, work on the same frequencies. He was also believed to have contact with non-human intelligences. So I think there's a lot more to his story. But what we're looking at here is what actually triggers that awakening in humanity, which I believe is happening at this moment in time. We found from scientific research that human DNA has the ability to transform. And this is what Dr. Olson, who, as I say, was a molecular biologist, as well as an experiencer, had as a download. The information of the donors and their background is there, a hidden key, and like PC programmers, they hide their work. This key can be activated, and these programmers know the person is ready to be contacted. The activated ones spread a signal to wake others up. So this is really interesting because she's not the only one that has this understanding. Activating human consciousness. Why are so many now coming out and saying that they're having these experiences and owning their experiences, including children and teenagers? These symbols were drawn by Antonio, who, when he was still a teenager, he's no longer a teenager, but had drawn these symbols. He calls himself an Arcturian ambassador, here to help the planet with its ecological, if you like. He sees himself as an ecological engineer. What he says here is that part of these symbols and scripts activate the senses or the DNA. Communication with galactic and interdimensional intelligences. And we also have multidimensional education by numerous non-human intelligences. Physical, some of it's physical, some of it's out of body, some of it is downloads of compressed data, dreams. It may be through music, art, star languages, codes, and crop circles, etc. All of them can be part of this activating process. Tracy Taylor understood this from her own contact. It should be borne in mind that the nature of extraterrestrial communication, that in a majority of instances, star visitors communicate with humans by telepathic transfer of mental images and concepts rather than by words and speech. Everything is made up of the same matter, resonating at different harmonics. So the ETs are able to communicate with us, directing thought on subatomic levels, and so activate the subconscious. These symbols are meant to communicate the nature of the macrocosm. And this is another one of these wonderful symbols by Antonio, who his story is in The New Human. Light language, and I'm going to play a sample of light language, which is Arcturian, and it's Antonio speaking this language. This language is more of an accurate representation of an individual's soul vibration. It means that the language comes directly from the essence of the universal mind or God, which ultimately links all existence together. It bypasses linear space-time, and it's one of the steps from words to telepathic communication. Symbols and script are the ancient forms for communicating volumes of information without having to read pages and pages. So they are compressed files of data in many cases that would, in one symbol alone, could fill this room with encyclopedias. I'm now going to play a little bit of Arcturian star language.
Summa tataka parakatika sita taka summa taka retika jinga taka tumsa hoka jingo taka parakatin taka parakatin taka matata surina taka paraka rikingi ka ko taka parakatika singa taka sung patakitin siktika parakatin siltu kuna pakatak sung patak sura patataki.
There are many forms of star language, which those that speak them tell me come from various parts of the universe, depending on what planet, what origin, whether it's on this universe or another. But there are some that are extremely similar and seem to come from the same origins. I'm going to give you another example of this star language, which was two of both Zach and Antonio. Stories are in The New Human. Caroline Corey did a wonderful documentary, E.T. Contact, They Are Here. And she also asked Zach and Antonio if they would show or talk about their ability to speak these languages. So you're going to hear Zach and also Antonio speak on this documentary, a brief clip of this documentary.
Sua set eleaka e sulu untuk ewe elo amana e sala ama at elo ala onkish susuma e tala elo lo tu ki shisea elo at sa o saretam mana e kuleate su shese e mono tu kiawa ark et sunumu et ula akit sesa ese sala tu shesam. It doesn't exactly translate into English. The key to this language is that it's not transmitting data verbally through the mind. It's transmitting images through the voice. And dolphins do the same thing. Dolphins can transmit pictures to each other, what they're seeing through sonar.
There have been times where I have spoken a language that is very representative of a particular civilization or a particular group of beings. And when I would speak it, they would be there on the other side, listening and sending back information.
Can you give a message that you feel is important in the star language? That's even better.
All right. I'll try this, okay?
One of the cases that was interesting to me was the mother wrote to me saying that her daughter had reacted to some of the star languages that she'd seen on YouTube. And the daughter said, but I can speak those languages too. And she said to her mother, there's three of them, but one of them heals water. When I speak of water, I can purify the water. And the mother told me that the water actually tasted differently. So we get a sense that there's something going on with these languages, with these frequencies. And now we understand that DNA follows the same as human language, that human language can actually alter the nature of DNA. What do star languages do? How do they activate our DNA? That's just part of what we're exploring. The young girl that I mentioned in the documentary has both this beautiful being here that she calls her special friends who help her. The mother told me that it was her first pregnancy. A voice told her that her children were not hers. The 9-year-old daughter gets important messages in ET languages and has helpers who guide and teach her. She said her guide, Zimoka, is blue with no hair or ears, human eyes, but bigger. The green being is male. My friends are here all the time. It's dangerous to come and help here because memories can be deleted at birth or by education and drugs. She said this, the star languages are from a place outside of the universe. The healing words in ET languages heal water. And that is really interesting because we are 70 to 80% water. So if you've got a star language healing water, what else can it heal when we hear it? And we know from the research with Dr. Masaru Emoto has shown both prayer, loving intent can alter the nature of water in his book, Messages in Water. And this was what Dr. Olson explained. I've no problem believing this. The spiral formations I've been working with in my water research are loading energy back in the water and helps healing, recharging, strengthening the energy field, the aura, whatever it's pointed at. Rightly used, it could be bliss for humanity in rebuilding our earth. Healing works on a cellular level, whether you believe it or not. The healing from my hands affected the protein binding to a gene P53, which plays a role in turning genes on and off. So here you have the science, even though the other part of it is more of an awareness, a sense of feeling and knowing. We also have the science when we look into it. Human body is water in up to 75%. So we know that how these frequencies may very well not just affect the human body, but also the DNA. Dr. Marie Batchelor, fully qualified medical doctor who had an activation in India and came back totally changed. She had a download of galactic frequencies that now creates, in her way of working, almost a shamanic MD. I believe I've become a modern shaman who better than one trained in 3D. When someone says to me, I hear you've gone spiritual, I respond, actually, this is a reality. It's quantum reality, it's science. We are talking science. I'm aware that I'm getting into the DNA and it's actually subatomic. I feel intuitively we're changing from carbon-based to crystalline. DNA is changed by frequency, and the new children are already activated. She brings in the frequencies through language, through touch. So the new human, what does that actually mean? What do we mean by awakening to our cosmic heritage? Well, there's lots of evidence now that's suggesting that we have several inserts from our galactic ancestors in our DNA, and that is being activated. So what is happening? DNA manipulation, Homo sapiens sapiens. There's an intergenerational link to many who've had encounters. So when I talk to an experiencer, for example, they may say that their parents or their grandparents were involved in having experiences, even if it's not as obvious as with them. They may say, my dad was always into UFOs, or grandma was always very psychic. There's your family lines, and sometimes it's both. But what was interesting was the new generations of human, those being born in recent years, that many have in metaphysical circles have called indigos, crystals, children of light, are also being labeled Asperger's, ADHD, dyslexic, and some forms of autism. So the new programs, how do we recognize them? How do we help keep them awake from being shut down? And what do these off-world intelligences do to keep them on track? How can we help the new generations assist this program of consciousness? Where to from here? There's a race of beings upon the planet, increasing in number, although visually and physically indistinguishable to most humans. They are the bringers of light. They are here to guide the awakening of terrestrial consciousness. The new children are born without programs and will bring about a global awakening. Tracy Taylor also told me this. They have direct connection, superior mental and analytical capabilities to higher awareness, extreme sensitivity to thought and emotion, enhanced DNA, photographic memories, fast motor neuron response, manipulation of time and space, nonverbal communication, telepathy, and resistance to disease. But she's not the only one. After Tracy had told me this in 2000, 10 years later, Dr. William Brown wrote to me, who is a molecular biologist, and basically confirmed this from a scientific point of view. He said this: I believe genetic modification is occurring right now in utero and producing new humans. The exponential increase in autistic, ADD, and indigo children, they have new genetic architecture which allows them to see the world in a multi-dimensional fashion. I believe research would show dormant genetic regions are being reintegrated into the biological systems and occurring in all of us to produce expanded awareness. Their brains work faster. They have access to more information in the beginning. In the classroom, learning is much faster than normal. I believe they know what is being taught. So here we have it from both levels, from the experiencer and from the scientist. Dr. Olson concurs, as she sees herself as a letter person. It's another name for these upgrade humans. I do not believe these are broken genes, she says, but offering a new multi-dimensional skills to prevent limited reprogramming of a third dimensional reality. So what she's saying is the reason that they are different, these new generations, is they are wired differently to stop them being programmed into this inaccurate and limiting 3D reality, which is not the true reality of us as multidimensional beings. The letter person. What Dr. Olson did was the testing of the physical sides of this new human. And because she had the ability as a scientist, this is what she discovered. They have above normal sensory cells for pressure in the skin, hearing sound frequencies above and below normal range, so they're highly sensitive to hearing, aware of minute differences in shades of color than normal range, taste and smell are enhanced, they're sensitive to all frequencies and can feel overwhelmed by sensory overload, sensitivity to radioactive radiation, energy fields, and energies beaming out of angry people. As she said, a letter person has to learn how to focus, control their energy, and they will be less prone to get ill from their surroundings and use their own healing abilities. One of the fascinating aspects of this is the older generations that discovered they were ADHD, and this is Neil Gold, who wrote the book Close Encounters of the ADHD Kind, said this, that he only discovered what he was in his 50s. And he says this, my book is about what happened in my extra-dimensional world where I met the beings of light. Being symptomatic of ADHD, I am not limited to the square template of the universe. I am wired to a multidimensional universe. My internet browser can browse into chaos, be it on Earth or the multiverse, and he can perceive hidden layers of order and make sense of it. He also translated the label ADHD into this, always dialed into higher dimensions, which I think is really now how we need to understand this. I'm showing you here an Asperger's brain and a normal brain, because Asperger's are certainly, I think, part of the upgrades. This is from a gentleman in England who calls himself an Aspie. And to give you what we're not looking at with those that are labeled is how do they perceive reality? What is going on with them? And he said this, Mary, your work of late has totally astounded me. I have the same sensitivities you explain in your talks, and I'd like to talk with you more. I'm left-handed, but can read text upside down, even backwards. I get a compulsion to speak in a tongue, which I'm not familiar, but comes naturally. I've always felt different. My eyes change color at 5. I heal faster than most. I'm precognitive. I've had 3 near-death experiences, sensed presences, hear more sounds, perceive a greater spectrum of color. Here's another young autistic boy that was investigated by Dr. Diane Powell, a neuroscientist in the US. The mother said this, I knew even before he was born, he was going to be someone special who would change the world. At 5 years old, he could recite several languages in Spanish, Greek, Hindi, Hebrew, Arabic, Japanese by the time he was 3, 8 languages by 4 years old. He could do algebra at 4. At 18 months, he could do multiplication tables in English and Spanish. The mother said I had to take him out of school when he started correcting the teacher. He is different and no one can understand how he thinks and appears to be telepathic. So what are we seeing here? We're seeing these new generations of human, but they're not being fully understood. Here's another beautiful soul who really was inspiring. She is dealing with the autistic child. And this is what she said. Sandra Desiger, a long life experience of extraterrestrial intelligences. As a child, she experienced being taken on light ships. She said this about autism and Asperger's. They have a high IQ, artistic, musical, and mathematical genius. We believe autism is a marker for something extraordinary happening in the human species, a consciousness shift and the emergence of children with extraordinary gifts. We believe there's a pigment intolerance. If all transomer carotenoids are removed from their diet, many of these behaviors abate. She said the miracle is that genius is the rule rather than the exception. I believe that this is true. We have a population of millions of geniuses hiding behind the veil of autism. And this was a letter to me in 2016. And of course, I mentioned that she has been having enormous success in helping with autistic children because of her own experiences. Hybrids. So what are they? On one level, we're all hybrids because we have in our DNA up to, some believe, at least 12 different species of non-human intelligence. So we're all hybrids, but there are those that really identify with that because they say that they've had added or extra DNA from these beings from birth. The book, Meet the Hybrids, this is what I think is really important. Charmaine Satch believes herself to be a human reptilian hybrid. There are various reasons for the hybrid program. They differ depending on species and if they're involved with the military. And that's a whole nother story because the military know about this. I believe one purpose for the creation of hybrids is to bridge the divide between ETs and humans, taking positive attributes from each race for certain purposes, such as healing, higher intelligence, stronger spiritual connection, and so forth. Charmaine, who I've met a number of times, a beautiful soul, is also a nutritionist. She's studying Chinese medicine and is very keen to show that the hybrids are not coming here as a threat. What they are coming to is to show us more of an understanding of who and what our species is, and that we're all evolving in different ways and activating parts of our non-human DNA. The hybrids are part of a new human archetype we're all evolving into. Now, this is Zach writing about the fact that he's a hybrid. At 16, he said this to me. The labels don't matter, the humans are evolving. Our DNA is advancing and we will express that in any way possible. And it's contained in our DNA. There is scalar imprinted memories of all other beings in our DNA has passed through. We can express it in the new human template. We can express it in hybrid forms such as indigo crystal. That is the energy they're expressing or perceiving through their reality lens. And what we are emitting, they are all interconnected, but you can perceive it as different if you wish to. That is how Zach understands himself at 16. He says this, I was told I was hybridized for expressing the human genome. There are many different agendas on the planet and each species has their own program. What I've been told about the hybridization is that it's to expedite the evolution of humanity. It's not like hybridizing us by replacing our DNA with theirs. We already have their DNA in our bodies. They are activating it through frequency and light manipulation. The consciousness that we are vibrating with is the attributes we will take on. So if someone is strongly connecting to the Arcturians, they take on Arcturian attributes. If one is connected to the Greys, it's the same thing. You are connected to which creates the expression. This young lady from Spain, Marina Seren, beautiful young lady who said that she was activated into this awareness of a hybrid nature when she was 15 years old. She said she experienced an accelerated awakening. It was so prompt, my energy shift, that part of my body was cold and I had the ability to go out of body, go consciously to other dimensions with my astral body without the need of meditation or laying down. I instantly remember what some would call my star origins, Andromeda and Arcturus. Here she says she's completely different to her own parents in looks. She had ET features no one else in her family had. Big slanted eyes, oval face shape, weak jaw, pointed chin, elongated neck, small mouth, lower body temperature. I asked myself, where did my genes come from? I started to sense ETs abducted my mum when I was an egg and gave me alien genetics. She said it felt like a wake-up call. I started to get obsessed about ETs, science, quantum physics, and wanted to question what was reality. How was the universe created? Why do I exist? What is existence? And so on. As I woke up, I began to question everything. I came to understand is most star seeds come here with this wake-up call encoded in the DNA. So they wake up at a determined point in their lifetime and can align to their mission. And this is the whole point. Many of the star seeds say, I've got a mission, I've got something to do, and I may not know what it is yet, but I know I have something to do. So this is all leading us to somewhere. This is some of the downloads that Marina has of her quantum physics science. She says she gets these downloads, and this is some of the information. The why of geometry in the universe and its deep logical spiritual meanings, the nature of particle physics, spiritual understanding and its connection to the structure of creation, really deep, profound understanding, space, energy and frequency, the psychology of the star children are just some of the things that she's been educated into either on spacecraft or as downloads. She also has been monitored, and a lot of these children are monitored by governments who know this is happening. And this is why we have to be very conscious of the fact that there are other agendas on this planet, not necessarily positive ones. I even recall, she says, having a lot of intuition and read people's thoughts, but the information more vibrationally. Even at 6 years old, I remember I was being visited by black helicopters. I was in my pool and a huge black helicopter, military one, passed above me, really close several times, convinced they were observing me. At 13, I started to be manipulated by the government. They have the ability to know where the star children are incarnated and their abilities. So it's really important to be aware that this is what's going on. The new human, it's not so simple as foreign DNA. Dr. Olson says this: it's a combination of genetically improved bodies in a combination of souls with different places in our universe, incarnating in these improved bodies. The souls have different frequencies and vibrations depending on their evolutionary status, and that plays a role in activation of the DNA in that particular body. I believe we also have to take into account the collective soul of Homo sapiens. So we have a multi-dimensional aspect to this. It is not purely physical. The DNA of the star kids has tenfold the amount of information, Tracy Taylor says. Abilities such as telepathy, manipulation of time and space, non-verbal communication are conscious abilities. They have the ability to access memory enhanced. They often have photographic memories and extremely fast motor neuron responses. The new humans teach a humanity a new way of being. My ET guides teach me different knowledge so I can teach the adults. This is a 9-year-old. So is there more evidence of the DNA changes? Medical researchers at the University of California in Los Angeles found young children, some young children there exhibited unique patterning. These children with 24 active codons shown remarkable resistance to disease, with heightened immune systems tested for diseases, appeared to be immune to everything. Science believed that these unused codons were from our genetic past, but now that theory is changing. Perhaps they are actually from our future, is what they have said. These high-functioning children have been found in China, and China's Super Psychics is the book that explored this. they were seen globally now, but in China, they were tested to open a flower bud with the power of thought, move beams from a sealed bottle with thought, teleportation abilities, have the ability to cause changes in the human body and others, such as raise their blood pressure, film changing DNA in the Petri dish. Dr. William Brown says this: the modification of the DNA is more like a remodeling of the genome to make dormant regions accessible. The understanding of knowledge and information operates at biomolecular level where sentient activity of the brain takes place, the atomic structure of the DNA molecules. It's transgenerational information. The encoded information within the atomic structure of the DNA molecule can be accessed to produce savant-like characteristics. We've talked about the savants that are given these labels. I believe that accessing the Akashic records within the DNA molecule, as the efficiency of our DNA increases, more of this information is available. The modification of the DNA is more like remodeling of the genome. It's more about the architectural arrangement of the chromosomes. Hybrids are altogether a new species of human. So the new human. The title fits because we're going into something that's new to us, Zach says. The labels such as crystal child, indigo child, rainbow child is not describing the person, but the person's expression of self. The indigo child has the warrior personality to break down a system that is wrong and needs change. The crystalline child has the aura of love and peace, the healer, the medium bringing in the sight. The rainbow child has the energy of the creator, leader, kingship, personality. It's a vibrational difference. It's a term humans are using only because of limited understanding. Those who call themselves these labels are just resonating to the frequency of those attributes and not staying with the status quo. Animals are changing too. Personality-wise, animals are also evolving. Also, many of these new activated humans are remembering their cosmic, if you like, their cosmic heritage. And Tracy said her contact with non-human cosmic races occurred before she was born, before I came to be in the earth domain. I had a close relationship with them, and it was continued after my birth. Many of the children talk about their special friends. They talk about where they came from, other planets and other dimensions. But we have to overcome the fears. And this is how Tracy sees her experiences, and she understood what the fears were about. I helped them achieve their genetic goals, and in return, my healing and psychic ability, plus my understanding of life on Earth and so on, has been enhanced. We're here having a shamanic wake-up call, and the shaman has to transcend their human fears before they can operate in a multi-dimensional reality. This is the modern day wake-up call. And what you're seeing here is the screens for these beings. Some will be fearful of Santa Claus, clowns, owls, wolves, owls with big eyes outside the window, just screens for many of these beings. I came through a portal in the sun was a 10-year-old explaining to me that he had come from another dimension. Many of the children born these days have memories intact of their pre-existent as extraterrestrials. They're kept on track, continuing their interaction with their cosmic family while in human form. Samantha Mowat mentions this in chapter 1. My daughter talked to me about her life in the Crystal Kingdom, far away from here. No one is ever hungry or sad. She said it's wonderful and our special friends are there, but they aren't really special because everyone's a special friend there. I think her mother says, I think this is her way of saying that everyone is an ET. She told me that everyone lived in a giant crystal building and it was clear like quartz. She picked up quartz to show me what she meant. She has described living in a jungle world with other cat people. Also, the children talk about downloads and information. 9-year-old Kathy was taught by her ET friends, and she talked about this from Imoko. My ET friends are here all the time, she said. She has access to 7 books, not real books, but uses this term to describe them. The red book is about creation and origins. The brown one about different planets and life there. The green one is about nature and how we can make contact with plants, animals, and understand nature. The dark one is about the body and how it really works and how we get it to evolve. The blue book is about light and truth. The red brown book she can't open yet because a dragon took the key from her in the 1700s. And the black book is about darkness and evil. Fascinating that a 9-year-old has that amount of depth to her understanding. Conscious life recall from a 12-year-old. I came from Andromeda, he said. He also remembered this at 5. I came from Andromeda. My mother had blue skin. The language was thought forms with telepathy. He claims to see through other people's eyes at times. He asked what I was doing at work because he couldn't understand the computer code I was writing. So he was saying that his son in a different place was able to tap into his father while he was working on a computer. In the free survey, 65, nearly 66% had past life recall and 74% connection to ETs and reincarnation. This young man said that he's from Orion. He is a light physicist working on time travel technology. Boriska in Russia very well documented this young man who again explained his past life memory where he was on Mars and how its inhabitants had flights to other planets, including Earth, and he visited a country called Lemuria. They also said there's knowledge under the pyramids, and the Lemurians were 9 meters tall. We call them special friends. 3-year-old, my son described the mantis as big bugs. He thinks they're funny. He also described lion beings that come to him. He calls baby lion is here to keep him safe and is his best friend. They have a beautiful understanding. They're aware they're being taken aboard craft and have a sense of loving familiarity with the beings that visit them. The story again is in The New Human. We take this to one other level here in how some are aware that on board craft, they may move their physical body into one of these beings. And this is a young 8-year-old in Australia who lives locally, as it happens, and told me that on the craft sometimes he will evaporate, he calls it, into a mantid form. Now he says his ancestors are the mantis beings, and when he dies, he's going back to being a mantis. He said, I leave my physical body and evaporate from my physical form into the mantid. It's a bit like steam. That's how it happens. You just think it, and that's how it happens. ET soul swapping with humans. 82% in the survey believed a connection with these beings pre-birth. Space school is very much a reality for many of those that are having experiences. And Whitley Strieber many years ago wrote the book, The Secret School, Preparation for Contact, where he had his own experiences as a child going and being shown past lives. And he was told, he said he had 9 lessons involved in the manipulation of time, because learning how to use time as a tool is the key to reaching higher consciousness under a relationship with the beings. This 5-year-old told his mum, I don't mind going through the walls. I learn more on the ships than I do at school. The cosmic syllabus being taught is very complex. Quantum physics, the holographic nature of the universe, awareness and connection to all sentient life, levitation, using their psi abilities and skills off word, understanding spatial geometry, how to operate in a multidimensional reality, how to communicate, interpret, interact with these interdimensional intelligences, out-of-body training, telekinesis, multidimensional ecology, manifestation of directed thought, healing, working with energy, true history of man's origins, etc. And to say that this is children that are being shown this, I will tell you that an 8-year-old who was telling me he was on the craft with 2 of his school friends and these other children that he said didn't look quite human because of the shape of their eyes, being taught complex things. And I said to him, so you say you're being taught complex things. Can you tell me what complex things? And he said, no, Mary, because they're too complex for you. So I was put in my place pretty well. So this
Isn't it gorgeous?
I mean, that says it all, doesn't it?
Really.
You know? This is, you know, an 8-year-old explained to me that she'd been taken to shown how to levitate, use her third eye. She's so excited to tell me about this. And then she said they showed her how they do interspecies genetic engineering, and they told her they do this because they seed other planets with different beings. This is 8. She's being shown this. So when we think of our kids in the way we normally think of them, we really have to understand that these are very much an upgrade of humans. So this whole thing has not just been our generations that are coming in now, some of the older generations. This one's from a young man who wrote to me who is Australian, and he said, again, it was a revelation to him. He'd never heard of anyone having alien classes as a child. He said it was a blessing and a curse in his life. I remember giving physics classes at the age of 3 or 4 in a classroom of children of similar age. I remember the details and had an avid interest in physics since, so I have not known what to do with the information. I used to feel I was just crazy. Did a year of philosophy and science, amazed myself and my teacher by the fact I could just answer any question. I never studied. Quantum hologram multidimensional information. They also are shown how to pilot spacecraft, navigate star maps, advanced technologies, how to use their consciousness, soul, spirit into another form, shown genetic engineering, healing procedures, the nature of black holes and wormholes, to decode and understand scripts, symbols, and light language, time travel technologies, taken on missions, and taught all these other technologies. And how do they explain it when they're little? This was fascinating to me. One of the accounts from the mother wrote, she asked her son, "Did you have any good dreams last night?" And he said, "Yes, Mum, I finished magic school." "What did you learn?" she said. "Oh, mostly science. I learned about space and gravity. Time controls everything. Time controls all. My son says that a white light comes through his window and suddenly he's there at school." 3-year-old complained again, which was fascinating. We're talking about children sometimes under 5. She was getting him up and he said, "Mummy, I don't want to go to school. I've already gone to school. I was at school with my special friends." And so she asked him, when was he at school? He said, "Today, nighttime. I've just got back now." I asked him what the school looked like, and he said it was a small class and a boy was teaching them, but the boy had really big black eyes and white clothes. So there you have it. Knowledge bombs. An 8-year-old had explained this. "Sometimes I get a headache. My head's so small, I can't always take it in quickly. It's like knowledge bombs are being dropped on my head." This is another drawing of one of the beings coming through the window, and her daughter, she said, has no fear. She explained it like this. This is what she's explaining. "It's a boy, a special friend. He walks through the window. It doesn't matter if the window is open or closed. He comes in when we're in our bunk beds." The mother said, "Why did he come to see her?" "Well, he's telling me about your baby. It's a boy baby that will come in your tummy soon. He, the being, comes at night. He's telling me all about outer space. I woke up at the night and thought I heard footsteps. Then I just went back to sleep. I thought it was you, Mum and Dad. Then I saw a white foot and said, 'Don't be afraid. I'm a nice person. I'm sorry I scared you.' And so it, the being, wouldn't be afraid of me." Again, the age always blows me away. This is Hayden at 7. This is his astral form he's drawn here with the symbols. He said, "Before I came to Earth, I was just a will-o'-the-wisp spirit angel form. I programmed my life on Earth and decided on my star mission and found myself in Mummy's tummy. My home planet is Elba. He's visited by beings that look like skeletons. He has incarnated as an animal as well as human at the time of the dinosaurs, draws unusual symbols, visits places beyond his consciousness, perceives energy fields, has traveled to the moon in another life, and told me he can go to the 9th dimension. His thoughts can affect lights." He also said the greys, the little grey beings, can only go as far as the 6th dimension. Now you tell me again, What child will even say that? Pumpkin planet, he said, this is Hayden again, this is one of the beings he sees. Pumpkin planet has cool aliens called Greys on Earth. They told me they can only reach the 6th dimension. They want to know about Australia, so I tell them. I also share information about the frickers. He calls these the frickers. They are green on their heads in a funny shape and yellow on their arms. So that's his drawing of these other beings that he sees. And this was an interesting hypnosis I did some years ago now in England, where a 15-year-old had had experiences with his mother and his grandmother. And the reason I've put this in is because so many are seeing the orbs now, these balls of light in pictures. I want to explain what I understand them, some of them at least, what they are. And the reason that I'm saying that is because of this was really fascinating to me. He didn't want to really do the hypnosis when it came to it to start with, because I think he got scared. And his grandmother said, look, it was brilliant for me. It's helped me enormously. Go on, give it a go. As soon as he went in, this is what he said. Ah, he's talking to them. Why me? Oh, I volunteered to come back. I chose this. I've been here 27 times before. He said, and the grey beings arrived when I was in my garden. I can see orbs, whitey gold and 2 smaller ones. They're here to make me feel warm. They're family. The big one is Great Nana, and the other one's Nana's dad, grandfather, and granddad's brother. They're here to make me feel comfortable, to reassure me. I asked him how he knew what the orbs of light were. John said, he just knew. I asked John, why are they there with him? He replied they'd come with the Greys to support him, to make him feel comfortable, so he wouldn't be frightened. John then said that when the Greys left, the orbs of light went onto the spacecraft too. So there you have the connection. So these orbs of light are us in our Merkabahs, in our light body. My daughter can see auras and energy. She's 6 years old and mentioned she can see emotions as colors when people speak. It comes out of their mouths. She said, when I'm angry, it's different color than when I'm happy. So we have to be aware of what these children are experiencing as their reality. Antonio, who you saw earlier in the presentation, was given a project when he was 15. And this was the project he did in New Zealand. I can just imagine what the teachers made of that. I think it's stunning. He explained it like this. The model of technology is resonating on pure light and sound with crystalline generators to increase the vibratory level of the physical world by crystals around the pyramid. He stated those in the pyramid could project the vibration of those inside the pyramid and send it round the globe. I can, again, just imagine what his teachers made of that one. So Homo noeticus, the new human, will help humanity to awaken. The new earth. This is what everyone wants to know. Where are we going? What is actually happening? Zach, some years ago, explained the new earth like this. My understanding, there is a new earth, but not necessarily new. We're just moving into a new vibration, but to us, it is new. It's been there for a long time. It's waiting for our arrival. Gaia is already at the destination she wishes to be. She's waiting for us to move with her. She's moving into a higher frequency, a collection of similar frequencies. All we are in actuality is a collection of vibrations. I never forgot this particular quote from a good friend of mine, Mike Oram. Does it rain in other dimensions? He's a good friend. He lives in the UK in the Lake District. And I wrote the foreword for his book. And one of the things he told me was in the 1950s, when he was just a little 4-year-old, this is what he told his mum. There will be a change in human consciousness. The energy is heading this way, and the essence of this energy is light. The energy will repair our DNA. It will make us complete in who we really are. This was what I was trying to tell my mother at 4 years old, and that was in the 1950s. And we are getting children now saying similar things. This is what we are bringing into our planet. These young, beautiful souls of awareness. The children are showing the way, focusing on love. The mother said, I never taught my son meditation, but my son placed a pyramid and crystals in a configuration in front of him. He said that each corner of the pyramid represented specific feelings. He placed a clear quartz crystal bead ball on the point of the pyramid and said it represents love, and said that that is what he was focusing on during his meditation. What else is the evidence? The scientists are saying this. Mitch Batras, author of Solar Rain, said this: solar cycle 24 has begun. The sun's activity is 50% stronger than cycle 23. This wave affects not only the planet, but the human body's magnetic field and human emotions. He believes that the magnetic influence of the sun will usher in what's described by our ancient ancestors as the transition, bringing in a new state of being. We have now discovered from our research so much more about what's going on with people that are having these experiences. Out of the 4,200 globally, 65% had off-world healings, 85 were more clairvoyant, psychic, 93% had knowledge they'd not consciously learned, 92% had out-of-body experiences, 37 near-death experiences, 56 their conscious thinking speeded up, 76 with paranormal experiences, 51% a greater desire to help others, 71% highly positive, and 85% had a psycho-spiritual transformation. So what we're looking at is, through these encounters, something completely different to what has been put out in mainstream media and put out in so many books, because the focus has always been on the fear, not transformation. We need to now look at transformation. Are we a hybrid species in transition? Many of you may know Dolores Cannon, a wonderful hypnotherapist, researcher that's got books in many different languages. In a convoluted universe, she came across the information time and time again. The DNA is being expanded to 12 strands. And this was also what I was discovering. We became good friends and colleagues, and she is sadly missed. And because those within the ufological fraternity wonder if I've got too far away from the nuts and bolts, I will have to say this beautiful gentleman, who's sadly no longer with us, who many people know, he was former Command Sergeant Robert Dean, a whistleblower, admitted just before, in the last few years before he died, that he'd been on a spacecraft, and while was there was told Homo sapiens originate from 12 different species of non-human intelligence. But he said something else that I think we really need to focus on in these times where we're all being challenged to transcend our fears and to trust we're here for a reason. We've come here to be here at this transition. We've chosen to be here as a soul for this transition because we know, as he was shown, he's seen the future and it's glorious. So let's put it in the hands of the new ones. They don't need governments to tell them we're not alone. They already know we're not. They know the planet's in dire shape, both ecologically and spiritually. They know we're lied to and manipulated. They know we're educated and programmed into a limited reality. They know about covert technologies, which control the planet, the public, and its fear-based mindset. They're aware of their psi abilities. They know about the extraterrestrial species visiting. The new human is here to wake up humanity. And as one 12-year-old said, humanity's been at this point 3 times before, but we've been knocked off course. This time there's a 95% chance we'll make it, and possibly a 100% chance we're headed to a higher level. It's due to the shift that's affecting everyone. So this new human, is this you? Human beings have no idea how amazing they are, but they have to believe it first. This was Kathy some years ago telling me, it's time to believe in who you are.
Wow. Absolutely incredible. Thank you so much, Mary. That is such an in-depth overview of all the different facets and aspects of, and you truly are, in my opinion, and in many others, such a way shower and a creating foundations and pathways for being an advocate for, myself and many others who are experiencers who have gone through these and been able to put it together and make sense of it and gather the data to, deliver it to people in digestible ways to kind of bridge those gaps. So I, incredibly grateful for your work and all that you've done. But how has this changed you in your life?
Well, I'm nosy. The fact is that I've always been nosy, right from a little kid. When I was brought up as in the Christian tradition, and some of it was fine, but some of it just didn't quite make. I couldn't quite make 4 out of the 2 and 2, and I started to question because things didn't always add up. And so I've always been questioning. I've always wanted to understand why we're here. What's it all about? Do we really end up in hell if we're really bad? And what's this purgatory thing? Why is that? What is that all about? I could almost see myself with this ladder, that when I was good, I'd go up the ladder a bit towards heaven, and when I was bad, I'd go down the ladder. This is the kid thinking about it. But I realized that a lot of things that I'd been programmed into, when I looked into it, were contradicted. That I realized that I wasn't being told the truth, and that started me on this. Well, what is the truth? And it isn't always what we see in our history books, or we see in our religious books, or we see in our, and it brought me into questioning everything, which is exactly what happens to those who have encounters, because many of them don't even believe in ETs or aliens till they've had the experience. It's not about belief, guys. This is about an experience they have that forces them to accept that this is reality. It isn't because they want to believe in Star Trek or they want, whatever. They are forced into it and often dragged into it, whether they like it or not. And it's like, well, if this is really true, then what else do I need to look at to make sense of it? That's why it took me to the DNA, took me to everything else, the theology, the anthropology, the archaeology, everything, the anomalies that are found in terms of our archaeological, Michael Cremo, for example, wrote, hidden archaeology. There are things that have been found that nobody knows about that completely contradict how, what happened to us as civilizations. And we may have many advanced civilizations that have not been acknowledged because there's this cover up, this truth embargo on virtually everything, not just on the ET stuff, but everything else, to keep the majority of the population ignorant of our true origins. And the one thing this does is it wakes you up to look at and say, hold on a minute, let me look into this. And you don't have to be a brain surgeon, to see that we're being lied to left, right, and center. So when people had experiences, I wanted to know, well, what really is going on? What are the agendas? What are the programs and the outcomes of that? And the outcomes generally, although there was a fear component to start with, were often really positive. These people started to change. They lost interest in materialistic values. They wanted to live more holistic lifestyle. They wanted to take care of the planet. They were interested in healing. Well, if this is so terrible, that doesn't fit with a negative agenda, does it? I mean, it just doesn't, because, why bother to upgrade people if you're just, fodder for higher intelligence? It's illogical, as Spock would say, and I like Spock, but he was logical. So it was like, okay, so when I do these presentations, I'm telling my story of how I have worked it through. and hope that people can see some sense to that, or not. I mean, you know, either way, I'm asking people not to believe necessarily even a small part of it or all of it. I'm saying, but at least look into it if some of it resonates. You know, find your own truth within that, to what makes sense to you, because it's not for me to tell you what to believe. It's actually up to you to finally, you know, work out what matters to you, what resonates with you. Yeah. And that has always been my mandate. This is my journey, but, you know, some of it may make sense to you, some may not, but this is how I've made sense of it.
And it's beautifully done how you interweave, you know, the information around the science, the genetics, you know, and looking at that, always asking, like, why is this happening? And, you know, infusing with the different aspects of light language and the healing abilities. It speaks volumes. And when you can compare so much of people from, you know, Sweden to Australia experiencing very similar, you can start to see the bigger, wider picture. And, you know, for the research and work that you've done, truly grateful. I mean, I mentioned this before the last time we spoke. I came across your information, a presentation similar to this when I was going through my abrupt, you know, experiences, and it helped to normalize what I was going through and make me realize that I wasn't crazy. And I'm sure that your work does that for thousands, if not, you know, hundreds of thousands of people, and will continue to do so. So, you know, it's just incredible work. It's such important work. And how has it been received differently for you? I mean, you've been doing this for many, many years now. What is the difference between giving a presentation like this, you know, before and now? I don't know what sort of time frame, but are you finding that people are responding much more to it?
Well, absolutely. What we're finding, and I'm sure you're aware of it, is that this kind of activation that's going on of people questioning. And some of it is very much related to, you know, the 2012 time where, you know, we had this Mayan calendar and major things were going to happen. Everyone was expecting something spectacular. Well, it was there, but it was a lot more subtle. Yeah. It was like the frequency was activating people, and the numbers that have said to me that before that time they were on the 3D matrix bus, if you like, and then all of a sudden everything shifted, and they either saw craft or they had a download or something happened that shifted them. And what I found was what I was talking about 25 years ago was really, really out there, like, you know, really out there. And I knew it was, not that I cared because I was too interested in it. What I find now is it's resonating to so many more, because so many are starting to do healing, bringing in the star languages. There are others that are doing the artwork. Some are bringing in the frequencies through music. It's resonating on a whole new level to people now, because it's like, what's the deal? How is it that, you know, that this is, other people haven't been saying this till now? And I think it's because it's time. And that's why I think it's being so accepted. I mean, when I wrote The New Human, I knew it was going to challenge people. I knew it was going to rattle their cage, because I said in it, if you find things in this, because I would not edit. I said, if that's your experience, that's what I'm writing. Yeah. I'm not going to take this out because it might challenge some people, because I want them to be challenged. I want them to realize that perhaps they don't know what they don't know. Yeah. You know, and you can say, well, that doesn't fit for me, fine, but it fits for somebody. Why? Who are you to say that's real or not real? Who are you to judge somebody else's experience? You know, Albert Einstein said and I quoted it a few times, he said, those that think they have the mandate on truth and knowledge are shipwrecked by the laughter of the gods.
I love that.
So none of us are an expert on reality. I don't care if you've got 15 PhDs, not interested, because ultimately you can't know what you don't know.
Right. And as I say a lot to my clients and some of the people who are in this lineup for World Unity Week is who's sharing different parts of their, you know, practices or their experiences, their gifts, their abilities. I always say to them, because there's always nerves about coming out of the space closet. I love that term that you coined. But, you know, I always say to them, I don't want you to be an expert on any topic. I want you to be an expert on you and your experiences and what you know through that. And that's what's the most important, because then people will be able to pick and different aspects that resonate with them, and everyone's going to have different experiences, but then they sort of cluster together. You know, at least I can see from my own work, and I'm sure you've seen the clusters of different experiences and what people connecting the dots. But it's just absolutely magnificent times. Any final thoughts, Mary, about the times that we're living in and what's happening with disclosure through mainstream media and just the energies? And I mean, there's so many things that are happening, but thoughts, final thoughts.
Well, my final thoughts are this: we've all chosen to incarnate at this time. So we've come here because we want to be part of it. And we know that we can contribute in some way. Otherwise, why would we have bothered? You know, we would have vacated before now. So what I also will say is all these children that are coming in with their awareness, with their gifts, also know that they can do what they've come here to do, although they wouldn't have bothered. So all I can say is stick with it. We're in for an amazing time. And it's, you know, I've said to my guides, and I'm saying, you know, keep it interesting on this planet, because as soon as it's get boring, you can take me off the planet, because I mean it. So they're interesting, so I'm hanging around. So
and I'm so grateful that you are. And well, it's just getting more and more interesting each day.
I think we're in for something incredible, and I think we have all chosen to be part of it. And so remember that when things get a bit difficult, that you have come in with everything you need to do what you've come here to do, because there's no point otherwise. So the soul knows exactly what to do, and it's certainly not going to let you miss the bus.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much, Mary. Beautiful closing words. I will link details of where you can connect further with Mary's work, all the different aspects. I'll link that in the bio, in the description. And I highly recommend to go and explore her work further and look into it. Today was just a brief overview of amazing case studies and work that you've offered and delivered. So just thank you so much once again, Mary, and thank you for being part of this.